All right, click the links to join the channel over on Subscribestar, or join this channel, or join us over at Locals, which I just got on. So Disney She-Hulk, what the hell is going on? First of all, I've watched this before, but I haven't paid attention to it. I actually paid attention to it tonight, and it's a bad show. I'm not going to say anything different about that. It's bad. Like, nobody's going to fall in love with this show, but it could have been good. Like, it wasn't that far away from being good. Like a lot of things that come out in the mainstream, they're just not that far away. Even the Ghostbusters 2015, it would not have taken much more to improve that quite a bit. And no, it's never going to be like this. These things are never going to be as good as, I don't know, the top of the stuff in the genre for sure. But this, if you just stop grinding the axe about every little kind of woke talking point, every little bit of feminism, every little piece of, like, what was it, Charlie's Angels? They did that too, where they just kept grinding this axe about every little. These aren't shows; they're like lectures, but they're wrapped in the trappings of a show. But you can see that there's a show in here, and there's talent in here, but they're just so brainwashed, and they've been told to do this, to just push every little piece of woke talking point, to like take the gloves off. You're gonna fail upwards. Like, the show is gonna get made for a full 8 seasons, and even if the show bombs, which I'm sure it's going to, like, it won't reflect poorly on the writers and everyone who was associated with the show. So it's a different psychology. It's like it's the failing upwards. It's that there's no consequences for them, and the writers, like, it doesn't attach to them negatively, because whoever greenlit the show told them, like, yeah, they sat down and go, oh, this is what we want like all these like woke talking points, and like you can just take the gloves off and just go for it and include it. It's like there's got to be some jokes and some humor in there, but like within each show we're gonna have I guess there's no woman talking test because it's a female chick, but there's going to be, the background's going to have how many visibly non-Euro characters type of stuff. It's like, well, you're just kind of following the checklist. It feels like it feels formulaic. You're not really making a show that, yeah, I'm not going to say it's from your heart. Entertainment is there to make money for sure, but it's like, it wasn't that long ago when they tried to make money in as artistic a fashion as possible, where now they're still trying to produce something, but it has nothing to do about even the appearance of trying to come close to making art or entertainment. It's just to make it palatable to people, to a big enough percentage of people, but still include all these woke talking points. Where I look at it, and if I was pulling the strings, I'd be like, wait a minute, why are you putting any woke talking points in it? And they'd look at me, and it would be the needle on the record. It would be that meme where they throw the guy out the window, and they would just be like, oh, you don't belong here. Why are you in this meeting? Why are you in this room? The only way you can take that kind of thing is if you're the one in charge, and the people who are in charge are every bit as woke as all the writers. So She-Hulk. They're not even trying to make a good show, like to get viewers. The point of the show is to virtue signal on social media that they're feminists. That seems to be the main talking point here, and they're not about like customers. Yeah, it doesn't. They're just not on the same. It's like I don't know. It's like socialism in Russia for a long period of time, where it just like quality control didn't exist because they had guaranteed buyers and sellers. It's like it just had to be minimally competent, which eventually the thing imploded, which I think you're going to see with not only Disney, but I think a lot of Hollywood. So they're trying to score like woke points by following what feels like a checklist of feminist talking points. It's got a 35% score on Rotten Tomatoes, and even a very casual viewer has got to kind of start noticing like something is wrong with the show. But it feels like something is wrong with Disney and with Hollywood in general. They're not making shows to make money or to entertain or for some higher artistic purpose, which, believe it or not, in the past, movies in the past, they did. I mean, obviously, yes, money, it was primary motive. The thing is, it's not even motive number one anymore. Like, now, the motive number one is propaganda. And then the second motive is to sell enough to push the propaganda as long as possible. But back in the days, like, they tried to do things, at least artistically. But the goal was to entertain or tell a story through entertainment, but not to lecture. At least it was very, very light-handed. This kind of stuff is like just, it's a tractor going through a meadow. At some point, people have got to realize that these aren't shows. They're like this giant social conditioning experiment. Maybe I'll use that as the title. None of these shows make sense. It could have been like Ally McBeal, and it feels like it's very close. I mean, in a parallel universe of Ally McBeal, but with a supernatural bent. Like this had the potential to be a great setting, sort of a rehab for superheroes. And it's like you just could have dialed everything back and like, okay, hey, the goal of the show is to be cute, smart, funny, and sexy. And again, it's the needle scratch on the record, and all the heads in the room turn to look at you and go, like, wait, like, yeah, like Alan McBeal, sexy. And they go, no, but we're going to put like with woke, diverse talking points about no, just like cute and sexy, like Ally McBeal. Let's sit down. We're going to binge watch, I don't know, like 20 hours of Ally McBeal and get that through their heads and go, or Melrose Place from the 90s, or like all that kind of, all that kind of stuff, schlock, admittedly, but stuff that I get the feeling if you made a modern Ally McBeal, it would be huge. But again, money's not a primary motive for these people. This is like a Tumblr checklist. If you're paying attention in like 2015, 2016, everything, and like that era of internet was, peak. That was when all the anti-SJW channels were still allowed on YouTube. YouTube eventually kicked them off. But they got their start because the stuff that these SJWs were doing on Tumblr was so over the top that you could take endless clips of them just doing stupid things and make fun of them. But eventually YouTube kicked all those channels off of YouTube because YouTube has a narrative to control. So everything is some nonsense in the show about microaggressions, incels, and chads or whatever, and istophobic kind of stuff. The thing is, nobody cares about feminism anymore. Women and soy boys sort of care. Pre-2016 Trump was kind of the big peak for that. But for some reason, feminism seemed to disappear when Trump came into office. People they were big. I guess they figured they were bigger fish to fry. Like a lot of that kind of cringy Tumblr stuff kind of ended when Trump came into office. Probably because they were just focusing just on Trump. The thing is, nobody cares about feminism anymore. It's been like seriously 8 years since that. It's like referencing Gamergate, which I don't even remember when that happened. That was like 10 years ago. The thing is, everybody in the show sucks. The bad guys aren't really any better than the good guys, and like they do stuff like it's not exactly a lecture on something to do with colonizing something, but they reference it. It's like I don't care about what other people did 200 years ago. Why would I care about why do you care about what other people did 200 years ago? Especially when they seem to ignore the things that are happening in present day. But more importantly, why would you put something so divisive in a show? You mention an issue like that to virtue signal and push hatred between groups of people. Like a lot of people are waking up to this kind of thing, and like they're looking at the media and they're putting on the glasses and they're kind of like, oh, this is not what I was led to believe. It's an eye-opening experience, but you can't stay in that blue pill forever. So, which is sort of obvious. The only bad thing you can find is from like hundreds of years ago, and like you're bringing that up 200 years later. But they put it in the show because it's stochastic terrorism. It's designed to get you to hate one group of people. There literally is no reason to stir up those sleeping dogs. Not if you want a society to function. This is how, in fact, you destroy a society, and that's exactly what Disney is doing, and the rest of Hollywood too. The goal all along was to destroy society. They're cultural Marxists. The theory is they grow the tall grass so the snakes can hide, so that you're so busy fighting, like they keep the pawns fighting pawns, so that you never focus on the kings and queens or the puppet masters who are controlling the board. All we have to do is stand up, as Ice Cube pointed out, and you saw the reaction to that. So Ally McBeal would have been a fun, silly, romantic comedy. They wouldn't have to lecture us about every single woke talking point. And I'm not kidding. This was really close to being good, or at least passable, something that you would have got into watching. Like it could have been an Ally McBeal with a supernatural twist to it. It's like it would not have been that hard to the lead chick who plays the role is really cute, and she's in amazing shape, and it's like you could have had so much fun with her, and I'm sure she would have played the role of just being cute, sexy, and fun, but that's not what they're all about. The thing is, these aren't shows; these are propaganda pieces, just disguised. They're wrapped around. The show is wrapped around them as like protective, wolf sheep coloration type of thing. The show has a ton of potential, but not Disney couldn't exploit it, and certainly not Hollywood at all. That's not what Hollywood is all about. This woke hill is the hill that they're absolutely going to die on. All this feminism and Bolshevik propaganda is cringe. It's been cringe for a good 8 years. Like 2016 was it really changed all that kind of like people like Feminist Frequency. You think back to that show I was talking about it. All that stuff was like 2015. That's how long ago it was. That when all those Anita Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinns and all those characters, like there's an entirely different social media footprint back then. It's kind of interesting to watch the progression. Like you think somebody would do a history of it, or maybe somebody. I think there's an internet guy on YouTube who handles that kind of stuff. The progression of social media, and like what YouTube has turned into is sad. But like that was 2015 energy. All that kind of when people cared about feminism, like all those chicks who cared about it or pretended to care about it, who were teenagers in 2015. I've got kids of their own, and they're just once you kind of settle into life, you just don't care about all that. That's something that only teenagers on Tumblr cared about, and I don't even think Tumblr is the same Tumblr it was back then. I think it went back to being an art channel. Didn't they get rid of adult stuff? And I don't know if they brought it back or something like that. Anyway, so all this kind of like those kind of feminist talking points, by now it's like the chicks who are, I don't know, those chicks now are like in their 30s or 40s, and they're like, the example is, well, if they're single cat ladies, I don't know if Sarkeesian or Quinn or like what they're doing, but it's like if they're still single cat ladies, young girls are looking at them like, oh, I don't want to be a single cat lady. I want to get married and have kids. So it's a bad example. And I mean, the whole thing just didn't kind of last. And, they always, we're going to focus on feminism in the first world and nowhere else. Anyway, most people are not soy boys. Even soy boys seem to be kind of fading away a little bit. Like I don't know what to call it. The metrosexual thing was in the 90s, I think. But it was kind of resurgence of the soy boys. And again, that was like 2015, when I think a lot of those guys were just, like in 2015, 16, were pretending to be a little bit more sensitive and caring about this kind of stuff to virtue signal to hang out these chicks. Maybe is that, I don't know if that's how they I don't know if they thought that was their game theory strategy, but it did not look like a very good game theory strategy. But it seems like a lot of those guys have kind of faded away too, probably because they got tired. They realized like this is just not. It's been 8 years. It's not working out. Most normal people are tribal and family oriented. It's sort of the globalist left hand path that leads to misery, or the based right hand path that leads to nationalism, tribalism, whatever you want to call it. But Hollywood is 100% globalist parasites, to the point where you don't have to be some far right, like cliche Christian of the 1980s. The Tipper Gore, right? Remember 80s Tipper Gore, like that, the PMRC. That was Al Gore's wife. The parents, whatever the album record labeling. That was a Democratic. That was Tipper Gore's wife. That was the left hand platform in the 80s, and I think late 80s somewhere. Tipper Gore. That was a Democrat platform. You think how far the window has shifted, where the right wing platform now is like Lady MAGA. It's that's the right wing today. It's, oh shit, what is 10 years from now hold? It's not going to be good. Anyway, you don't have to be that stereotype raging against Twisted Sister testifying before Congress or whatever to realize that like supporting Hollywood in any way is evil, because Hollywood is evil, like biblically, existentially evil, deeply evil, like parallel dimensions slipping through the cracks in the universe to be like sent from God to test humanity evil. And you look at Hollywood and it's like, this just feels dirty and angry. Well, there's a lot of stuff to be angry about. Yeah, but on Disney, is that working out for Disney? Clearly, it's not, because it got a 35%. Which honestly, looking at it, I would, yeah, I'd give it the same 35%. But I mean, it's not. It wouldn't even rate it. It doesn't even. I just wouldn't watch it. Watch it to talk about, and it's like it's okay, but I don't think it's going to have a second season. But I would assume that the left wing kids would be more on board with all this kind of woke talking points, but. Like they say one thing and they do another. It's like you get shows like They Them, which I think I reviewed. I watched a few minutes of it. As you could find it on Odyssey. They probably took it down, but yeah, like they look at this stuff on paper and they go, "Oh, we're gonna have all," or what was that guy's show that just came out, Bros. Like on paper they go, "Well, it's all gonna be all these kind of BLT type talking points," and you go, "Oh, okay." So you think like people will be on board with it? Well, they say they're on board with this kind of stuff on Twitter. Yeah, friendo, but Twitter's free. It's completely free. And you want people's money. It's like getting people to listen to you for free is not that hard, as there's a million channels that prove it. Getting people to pay you for your work is a whole different story. And hey, thanks for the recent subscribes, guys. I'm like, no, they're not paying for they're not donating for the YouTube channel. They're donating for Odyssey and Bit Chute. And you're probably like, why would anyone donate to a YouTube channel? It's for something else, but but this is a business for these Disney shows. They're trying to make money. I mean, it's a little different because you're not trying to sell advertising, because you're trying to sell subscriptions. So that's a little bit of different psychology, where actually the quality of the show doesn't have to be as good, because it's the bookshelf theory of shows, where it's not one book that stands out on the shelf where you're just attracted. It's like an anchor store type of thing, where if you have a Sopranos or Sex and the City or a Game of Thrones, that's kind of it. Those are kind of the big three shows in the last 20 years, I think. Those are anchor points for shows. But like the other point is the shotgun approach, the scattershot approach, where you have so many books on the bookshelf and they're all kind of mediocre, but it's a full bookshelf, and it's like you look at it, oh well, $15. Yeah, She-Hulk and Ms. Marvel and Flash, and I guess it's DC, but whatever, all these kind of superhero genre shows. Like, yeah, each individual show is not great, but it's a whole kind of background universe, and it's like, oh, there's just kind of stuff to play in the background. You feel like you're getting your $15 worth, where like you wouldn't even pay that for one stellar show. Well, even like Sopranos or something. I guess that was the other huge hit. It's like, but it's this background bookshelf where like shows just have to be in the background. So when they offer you, like, look, we've got 1,000 shows, the full bookshelf, and we've got more than the other thing. It's like, yeah, but like people get fooled by the quantity versus quality thing. And like with Disney and I think most of these streaming shows now, because I don't think they have any anchor shows. I think they were hoping that Rings of Power would be an anchor show, and Games of Thrones, House of Dragons, which has got better, like Rings of Power, I think has got like a 30% rating, so it's an absolute bomb. But House of Dragons has got like an 80% rating, so it's there's some energy behind it. But it's still not an anchor show, which means like people are deliberately signing up to get together, to pay for the show, to get together to watch it, and they're not unsubbing after the subscription term runs out. So I don't think there are any actual like lost leader show, whatever. No, that's not the right term, but shows that get you in the door to get you to pay for this thing. I don't think there's a show out right now, and I kind of wonder if there will be in the future, because if you look back at the big shows, Sopranos, Sex and the City, and what the other two I mentioned that were huge, Game of Thrones, and I think there was one other that were huge shows. Like they didn't have the political correctness that you have now, because the window is shifting so far left so fast that like even probably those shows like Sex and the City, I don't know when that came out, 20 years ago. I mean, I know they're doing a reversion of it, but nobody's watching it because everything's diverse and they're talking about their privilege, and it's like it's just a Bolshevik checklist. Like even SJWs aren't into that kind of stuff. But if you went back and look at the original shows, they probably weren't PC, or they're probably PC for the time, but the time I think was 20 years ago or 15 years ago. I don't know. Game of Thrones came out 10 years ago? I don't know. I haven't seen it. And it's not like that show's PC or not PC, because it's set in a fantasy universe, but it was set in a fantasy universe. It was based on European mythology, and like the new House of Dragons is suddenly you have non-Europeans in this story, and It's like, does it work? Does it not work? I don't know, but it doesn't have the same drawing power as the original show did, for sure. That show was other than the last season, like people were totally on board with that kind of thing. So, my point is, like, I don't think there is a show coming up in the future, because that means you'd have to make it not PC, but like every future show has got to have, well, we're going to have the Bechdel test, so women have to have speaking lines, and it's got to be a certain amount. We've got to have diversity in the background. We're like, oh, we want to do this European mythology show. Oh, yeah, they're just not going to make that. I mean, you get Rings of Power, and you look at Rings of Power, like, oh, 35% on Rotten Tomatoes. That's not very good. Yeah, that's kind of the future of Hollywood, which is why you're at the point where, can you make your own movies? Probably. You probably couldn't do worse than this. I don't know what the budget for this show is, but it's not, I don't think it's $10 million an episode like Rings of Power is, or probably even more than that. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys all next episode.